Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, June the 12th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host of the most, Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are trying to pride ourselves on being a news podcast, which means that we only take from reputable sources, those with award-winning journalism, natural research. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, Newsmax, News Media, whatever extreme left or extreme right publications are out there. We simply don't do those. We just give you the facts, just the facts, nothing but them. At the same time, we do try to watch our language, guys, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, guys, there may be things that might be shown, such as you see there, that might be a little bit graphic for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this? We start this because, well, I'll start with Biden first. We are in the middle of election season. Let's be honest. It's basically a battle of grumpy old men between Biden and a former Dorito insulted, badly tanned, overweight, would-be dictator in his own mind, Trump. Anyway, we usually say at these times where the Biden administration, or let's just say Trump and his list of crazy, always do something that I wish they did during their election season, during their time of their administration run, if you will. That being said, I got to talk about this first. The reason why I'm bringing this up is basically because the Biden administration is proposing banning medical debt from credit reports. Keep in mind, this affects more than 15 million Americans, and their credit scores are raised. Anybody that's ever had medical debt or know about credit reports know that this kind of debt can weigh on you. This kind of debt can lower your score. And let's be honest, credit, much like cash, is king around here. And if you have a whole lot of debt, not that many doors open to you, and you wind up paying more in the long run. That being said, the reason why I bring this up now is because Biden could have proposed this literally on day one of his in the first 100 days of his administration. Because this is great. I can't knock this because, again, there are a lot of people out there that are suffering, crushing under the weight of medical debt. And it prevents them, much like student loans, prevents you from getting better rates on your loans, may prevent you from getting a car, may prevent you from getting a house, may prevent you from getting a better job, because jobs do check credit reports too. So this is the thing that I am just not understanding, and I'm just being completely honest about this, is just that because, guys, medical debt is great. It really is, to want to push to get it removed. The problem is, why not student loans as well? And I propose that because, again, student loans is a hot button ticket. It is. I mean, let's be honest. We've talked about this on the podcast. We've sat there and said that, Biden could have proposed wiping out the entire college student loan debt for all Americans because, again, we paid for businesses by forgiving almost 96% of a failed $787 billion paycheck protection program that was looted, full of defaulted, and a lot of rich people didn't have to pay back shit. So if we can forgive businesses, we can forgive students. But most importantly, student loans, along with medical debt, should not appear on credit reports. Because why? Again, crushing debt. The same way student loan debt can affect medical debt is the same effect on a credit report. The fact that you owe, a tremendous amount of money, mind you, again, prevents certain doors from being open to you. Which, again, you would think, and again, I say this, you would think that, hey, where our economy is ran off the fact that if citizens aren't spending, we're not moving forward. Okay, how do you make citizens spend? You alleviate the debt off them. And so the consuming cycle continues. But it amazes me that what they're saying is, again, there's pushback. Why? Because medical bill collectors and companies are lobbying to their Republican friends and saying, we can't have that. We need to make sure that these people are still under the thumb. We need to make sure that if we don't report their debts on their credit reports, they won't be inclined to pay, which is stupid to me because, again, you still owe it. Yeah, you're going to have to wind up paying it regardless. But that being said, it shouldn't follow you the rest of your days. So the thing about this is where I find it interesting that Republicans are going to argue that Americans just need to tighten up their belts. Americans just need to do this, that, and the other. While everybody seems to forget the GOP hasn't done spit, and I do mean spit, since this 118 Congress has been sworn in, except Dr. Hunter Biden, which we'll talk about later because, that's their white whale of all things. But again, not just medical debt, but student loan debt needs to be removed from credit reports because it will generally help more Americans. And again, I don't see the downside, which I know somebody on the conservative side is going to sit there and say, but Will, they're not going to pay. They can't pay now because they're not getting paid enough and everything else is going up. So the matter of paying isn't the problem. So again, guys, the one thing I want to point out here, outside of the fact that my phone's going off, that's interesting. There we go. So it's not like my phone was just going off just now. But anyway, the point I'm making is this, that there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to argue that medical debt and college loan debt should remain on the books. It shouldn't. Reason being, guys, because, again, it disrupts progress. And if you keep asking Americans to basically actually give you your vote, you would think for once you could kind of do this like 2 years ago when you had the chance. But this is the part that bothers me. It bothers me that they waited until an election season because that adds into what people already sit there and say, oh, Biden wants to propose this, must be election season. This must be the time where he's going to give us the one out of the 100 things we want in order for us to give him our vote. And I hate that scenario. I hate that scenario because, again, it plays too much into what Republicans will try to push. At the same time, you'll find it hard to break the monotony of what folks experience with politicians, which, again, Joe, I love the idea. You're a little late on the execution. That's all I'm saying. A little late. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover Amazon as well because Amazon is in hot water because now there are legal claims from more than 15,000 Amazon contract drivers looking for compensation for overtime and unpaid wages. Now, if you've ever done Amazon Flex, or done their delivery service, you've probably experienced a number of things. That also being seen, you've probably seen, and I'm just going to take a wild guess at this. If you've done Flex, I should say, you've probably done the 30 minutes or 2 hour or 4 hour, dare I say 5 hour block, to where you're driving to parts unknown in places that are questionable at the same time delivering packages. It's a great idea. Don't get me wrong, because this is a part of what they know as the gig economy, where you can work when you want to, get paid on the spot, and of course it's great. But Amazon, if you ever do work for Amazon Flex, I should say, you're only set out as a contracted worker, which means that, yes, as an independent contract worker, you can file claims on expenses for use of your cell phone because Amazon Flex does use your cell phone. You can for mileage on your vehicle because you are using your vehicle to deliver these packages. So Amazon, of course, in their usual way, but it's not like we lied to people. You kind of did. For a lot of these packages that have a, say, 3 hour block, may take you longer, but you only get paid for those 3 hours. You don't get paid for overtime. Or if you have a 5 hour block, dare I say, or 4 hour block, and your time goes over, you don't get paid for that. At the same time, you don't get paid for the services are using to track and label the packages. You're definitely not getting compensation for the wear and tear on your car. So there is a reason, and again, this has actually been brought up by two of the lawyers that are on these claims that are saying that, yes, these individuals should be filing with Amazon and Amazon should pay out. So it's going to be interesting what Amazon does because, let's be honest, Amazon is a little too good at how can I put this ever so nicely? Avoiding BS. I'm sorry, let me leave that wrong. They're not avoiding BS. They see their own BS coming and they slightly step to the left. Oh, but a majority of our packages get done early. I fail to see how, especially if you're one of those Amazon Flex drivers. Because even I admit it, I did Amazon Flex, did a couple runs here and there, and I still said the same thing, that anything over 3 hours or 4 hours is grossly misunderstood. But because they're very carefully worded legal attorneys based off documents, it makes it hard to get anything out of them. But hey, if we're able to unionize one Amazon center and more coming on the way, then we can do the same thing for Amazon Flex. But we'll definitely keep that in mind as that story develops. But let's go ahead and get to the nitty-gritty of it all, shall we? Dorito himself seems to be in the middle of a pick me moment. What I mean by pick me is that he is going to have to wind up picking a VP. He has sat there and said he may pick one during the RNC. I wonder who could that be? Again, I hate to say it. As I said before, when there was Nikki Haley, Dictator Rick, America's Creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, America's favorite Uncle Tom, Tim Scott, and now others have entered the race. But it's a circus.
Of course, recently said that he'd announce his pick for VP during the Republican National Convention a month from now. Who are his top choices? And just having someone new on the ticket, might that factor alone turn out more Republican voters?
Oh, absolutely. And so ABC News has learned that there are 3 Republicans who have been requested for documents by the Trump campaign as part of VP vetting. One is Doug Burgum, who's the governor of North Dakota. The other is Marco Rubio. And then the third is J.D. Vance. And then, of course, there are others as well, like Byron Donalds, who's a congressman from Florida, like Elise Stefanik, who's a member of House Republican leadership, like Tim Scott, who's a senator from South Carolina. The list goes on and on. So that 3 that we know of who've had documents requested of them, they may not be all encompassing. Now, when you talk about could a vice presidential candidate propel enthusiasm, we've certainly seen vice presidential candidates change the calculus of campaigns in the past. Think back to Paul Ryan, for instance, when he joins the Romney campaign and he really reignites some energy into that campaign. Even Sarah Palin changes the calculus of the McCain campaign, and you and I can have a longer conversation a different time whether or not that was beneficial for the McCain campaign or not. But certainly vice presidential candidates can increase the temperature, can increase the enthusiasm. But even these vice presidential candidates would tell you, make no mistake about it, when you're joining a Trump campaign, it is still a Trump campaign and all eyes are on Trump. So even as we've seen when they've gone to court with Trump and defended him in the press, they are very much expecting to and playing a supporting role to the former president in this election.
Jay O'Brien, with all his infinite political.
Yeah, it's a crap show. But he did mention one name that I just got to really point out. Byron. Oh, Byron Donald. If you haven't heard what this fool said, because I thought some of these black conservatives, and I mean by extreme conservatives, because I still find it weird to say that black and conservative both exist in the same sentence, much less a person. He had made a comment that Joy Reid, and I'm about to play the entire segment because it needs to be played, had pointed out that maybe you thought you were sounding smart, but you're really sounding more like Candace Owens if Candace Owens and Tim Scott and Paris Denton all decided to talk at the same time using one brain cell and realized there was a misfire from Jump Street.
Hakeem Jeffries, the Congressional Black Caucus, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Jamie Harrison, and the president of the NAACP, Derek Johnson, just to name a few. In those comments at an event designed to help Republican outreach to Black voters in Philadelphia earlier this week, Congressman Donalds made what certainly seemed like positive comments about the Jim Crow era. And he claims his critics are missing the context of what he said. So here's the context.
I grew up with my mom. My dad and my mom, things didn't work out. As an adult, I look at my father and I say, bro, I don't know what happened, But you my father, and I love you.
Wow.
I don't know what happened. I wasn't there.
Wow.
But I'm gonna tell you this: growing up, the one thing I knew I wanted to do, and this is not about my father. This is about what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to be a father to myself.
Wow.
And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of Black families with younger Black men and Black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a Black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative-minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries as Wesley's contemporaries, you're starting to see more Black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, "Oh, wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids?" It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job, generational wealth.
I am joined now by Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, thank you for being here. We played that lengthy segment. That is what you posted on your social media. The part of what you said that people take issue with is this line, which I'm going to read back to you again. You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative minded, but Black people voted conservatively. But it is that during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. That's what people have taken issue with. What are they missing?
Frankly, what's really happened is that you have, Democrats, and you have the Biden campaign, and some of the media want to twist my words for political purposes. The overarching issue is talking just about Black families and why you're seeing a trend of Black people leaning towards Republicans in this election cycle and probably in election cycles to come. And part of that, is that when you're raising families, raising kids, et cetera, you're now thinking about all of the public policy issues, all of the economic issues, all of the education issues. And that's leading people to have divergence in political thoughts. That was the only point. The stuff that comes up about Jim Crow and twisting my words, saying I was being nostalgic or saying that Jim Crow was good for Black people, that's all political spin. It's a lie. It's gaslighting. And that's truly unfortunate.
So here's the challenge, Congressman. You started out talking about your family, talking about your mom, talking about being raised, and you on your own brought up Jim Crow. In fact, you said Jim Crow 3 times for emphasis. It wasn't the media or the Democrats or gaslighters who brought up Jim Crow. It was you. You brought up Jim Crow. So why did you use Jim Crow specifically as your reference? You did that. No one else did that. You did it.
Oh, I did. We were having a conversation, just talking as, Black people in Philadelphia. But if you're going to use the chronological timeline of America before the Great Society and Lyndon Johnson's time period, you had, unfortunately, the Jim Crow era in America. During that time period, the marriage rates of Black Americans was significantly higher than any other time since then in American history. So it is a divergence if you're talking about marriage rates in the Black community. They have plummeted. And what we've seen recently in America, which is a very good thing we should all celebrate, is that the marriage rates in the Black community are rising again. That's good for Black families. That's definitely good for Black children. It's something I want to see. I'm quite sure you want to see it as well.
Okay, let's talk about that. Jim Crow lasted roughly from 1867 after the Civil War to 1968. Is there a specific period between 1867 and 1968 that you thought was this golden era for Black families, or a time that was good for Black families?
Joy, I never said that. And see, this is where the gaslighting comes in.
I'm going to read what you said.
All I was talking about was the marriage rates.
Stop. No,
Joy,
that's not what you said. Let's play what you said. Play what he said. Play what he said.
Families. You're saying I said it was the golden era.
I'm going to play. I'm going to play what you said.
I said that it was better
I'm going to play what you said.
I never said that.
Play what he said.
Play what I said.
Play what he said.
During Jim Crow, the black family was together. That's right. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are.
Okay, so now I'm going to go back. You said during Jim Crow, the black family was together. What was the authority of the black father in the black family during Jim Crow?
Well, listen, under Jim Crow, obviously, black people were under great persecution, unfortunately, by Southern Democrats and the Democrat Party overall in the history of our country. That's the fact. And so, well, let me finish now, Joy. And so having the black man in the home was about first protecting the mom and protecting the kids. Incredibly important. It was the leadership in the home, which is incredibly valuable. And I think what we're witnessing, obviously, the last 30 years, definitely through my generation, is black fathers being at home is incredibly important for the success of black children going forward. And it's not just a black thing, that's everybody. Fathers in home help to breed success for kids moving forward. That is a great thing for our country. That's something that has been proven throughout time. So what I'm talking about is not the golden era of Jim Crow. That's ridiculous. I would never say that. And that is the gaslighting that I'm standing up to, because that's what Hakeem Jeffries, the Biden campaign, Jamie Harrison, and the like are trying to bring up. And unfortunately, the media has followed suit with misleading headlines, and that's wrong.
Now I'm going to talk. Do I have a chance? Good. Now, you talked about the black father being in the family, being able to protect the family. First, I want to read, just for our audience, the definition of Jim Crow, just so we all know what we're talking about. Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation. They existed essentially from the post-Civil War era. They were meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, and other opportunities. Those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws often faced arrest, fines, jail sentences, violence, and death. Now I want to talk about something that happened during this era. You said that what you were talking about was the presence of the black father in the home to protect his wife and family. In 1943, in the state that you represent, in Florida, a young man named Willie James Howard, who was 15 years old, was lynched. During Christmas of 1943, Willie Howard sent cards to all of his coworkers at the Van Priest dime store in Live Oak, Florida. Unlike the other cards, Willie's card to Cynthia Goff, a white store employee, revealed a youthful crush. His greeting expressed hope that white people would someday like black people, and concluded, "I love your name, I love your voice. For SH, sweetheart, you are my choice." After reading the card, Cynthia's father, Phil Goff, brought two friends to the Howard home and demanded to see Willie. Despite his mother's pleading, the men dragged Willie away and then kidnapped Willie's father, James Howard, from work. The men drove the two Howards, to the embankment of the Suwannee River, bound Willie's hands and feet, stood him at the edge of the water, and told him to either jump or be shot. Willie jumped into the cold water below and drowned while his father was forced to watch at gunpoint. Willie's dead body was pulled from the river the next day. You said that during the Jim Crow era, the importance of having a black man in the home was to protect his family and to protect his wife. I actually spoke with somebody who lived through Jim Crow. Her name is Merle Evers Williams. And Merle quoted to me a man named Charles Silverman, who wrote in Crisis in Black and White, that in 1890, the year that the Mississippi Constitution was written, the policy of crushing out the manhood of the Negro citizens was to be carried out with success. So the man in the home during Jim Crow had no rights, could not protect his wife from rape, could not protect his son from lynching. So again, why would you quote that era and say that at that time, the family all being in the home together was something we should think of as a good thing?
Well, first of all, Joy, the story you bring up and you're bringing up is a tragedy, one of the great tragedies of the Jim Crow era. This is why those policies they were disgusting and distasteful. All I was talking about, Joy, was the benefit of a man in the family.
Again, sir, I'm sorry, I let you talk for a long time. Sorry, talk over you. You've gotten a chance to speak a lot, Congressman. You're going to answer my question now and not filibuster. This is the question you want. This is the question you need to answer.
That's what I'm trying to answer. That's what I'm trying to answer, Joy.
Give me a second. Take a breath. Take a breath. If a black man could not protect It's my show. If a Black man, a Black father, could not protect his wife, his son, or himself from lynching and violence, how is him being in the home mean that that is an era that was better for the Black family, or that we should think of as a good thing?
First of all, Joy, I never said that it was better for Black people in Jim Crow. I have never said that. And even my own words say that. If you're talking about the importance of Black fathers in the home, or frankly, all fathers in the home, it is always for the betterment of children to have leadership. Yes, for safety. So having two people in the home to help provide the economic needs for those children so the family can succeed. That is a wonderful thing. We should always get back to that, not to Jim Crow. And this is the point of the gaslighting and the lying that is occurring with what I said. Don't try to impose the fact that the marriage rates were better in the higher, I want to be clear, higher in the Jim Crow era to mean that I think Jim Crow was great. That is a lie. That is gaslighting. I would never say such a thing, which is why the Jim Crow era was destructive of Black people.
You brought it up.
So the reason why I played that entire 12 minutes was because that's a potential VP for Dorito. Byron Donalds reminds me of Candace Owens if Candace Owens decided to be a man, because he sat there and he said Black families actually did better under Jim Crow. Miss Joy Reid decided to sit there and go, okay, explain how. Of course, he said, well, you guys are just going to twist my words. No, we really want to know, why was it better under Jim Crow? Oh, well, you know, the Black man was there in his house, was there in the household with the family, and they were stronger for it. Joy Reid begins to read one of many stories, and that's a publicated story. Who knows how many other stories during the Jim Crow era in the South would have occurred? And she read one where a father had to watch his son drown to death. And because he was at gunpoint, he couldn't do a thing. And of course, Joy Reid brought the question back. She sat there and said, what was so great about the Jim Crow era that made it great for Black people? Here's what Byron Donalds is doing, pushing the goalposts. Oh, because this is what conservatives do. Conservatives do this all the goddamn time. When you call them out on their words, when you present the literal evidence in front of them, oh, well, you're gaslighting, or I'm just gonna speak a lot of word salad until you either get the point or time runs out. But they won't answer the question. You just saw him not answer the question because he doesn't want to say what he really wants to say. Under Jim Crow, white people felt more comfortable with us because they could do everything they want. Jim Crow era gave white folks the green light on Black people. And for him to sit there and say, well, Black people and Black marriages stood together under Jim Crow. Yeah, it's called safety in numbers. And it wasn't even that safe. A black man could watch his wife get raped in front of him. He couldn't do anything. A Black man could watch his kids get murdered in front of him. He can't do anything out of the event that he'll be killed himself. So yeah, Black men and Black women had no choice but to unify. That's because that's the only options they had under the Jim Crow era. But listen to Byron Daniels. Byron Daniels is an idiot. I said Byron Donalds. I keep on saying Daniels, sorry. Byron Donalds is an idiot. Joy Reid just sat there and proved it. At the same time, he's like, well, it's gaslighting, and that's exactly what Biden and here we go. Here's what Biden and the left always do. When in doubt, go to the Fox News hits, or go to the Fox News greatest hits. And this is a VP. This is a potential VP pick that Trump could pick. And that tells you a lot, because the rhetoric they're spitting, the lies they are telling, all meant to kiss the ring. And that alone screams volumes. But I want to talk about this as well, because I said before, the GOP got their white whale, and let's be honest, I hate to say it, but we do got to report it.
Here, because there is breaking news at this hour, a guilty verdict in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial in Wilmington, Delaware. The president's son facing 3 felony counts accused of lying on a federal form about drug use when he bought a gun in 2018, saying he was not a drug user, and prosecutors arguing he illegally had that gun for 11 days. After deliberating for about an hour on the first day, about 2 hours today, they have found him guilty on all 3 charges. Count 1, making a false statement in the purchase of a firearm. Guilty of count 2, making a false statement related to information required to be kept by a federal licensed firearms dealer. And guilty on count 3, possessing a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to a controlled substance. So again, the breaking news at this hour, Hunter Biden found guilty on all 3 felony charges. Let's get right to Terry Moran outside the courthouse. Terry?
We'll just stop it right there because, again, it just goes into the statements that the president did kind of abrupt his day to go be with his son, and sentencing is bound to follow. He may not do jail time because it is his first offense. Again, Hunter Biden, guilty on all 3 charges. Why is this news? Well, basically because Fox News and every other right-wing media, if you believe them, all swapping down Hunter Biden was dirty. He's working with the Russians. Check his laptop. He's using government funds. He's using his father in the White House for political connections. His father is using him and this, that, and the other. And they all sit there and say, well, Biden's going to get this swept under the rug. He's not going to see a day in jail, and he's not going to see a day in court. And yet he did. He's not going to get convicted. Yet he did. He's not going to be found guilty. Yet he did. So keep in mind, it wasn't too long ago that old Dorito got hit with 34 convictions, all guilty on his convicted felon, Donald Trump, 34 counts, because he decided to cook his own books. And you guys remember what I played from Fox? Oh, this is a travesty. It's a sham. The law is not what the law should be anymore. Just wondering, since Hunter Biden got convicted through the same process, are they still claiming the court, and it's all a sham? Let's find out.
Of course, creates the split screen of conservatives who just 12 days ago were slamming the rule of law, slamming the judge, the jury, and the verdict in Donald Trump's Manhattan trial. Some even claimed the conviction was the end of the Republicans we know it. But tonight, they seem to be singing from a completely different tune.
This is a new era in America, and I think it goes against the ilk of who we are as Americans and our faith in the criminal justice system. In the end, this jury of ordinary people from Delaware were not intimidated by that family, and they recognized that this was a clear-cut case and that clearly no one's above the law.
This is a very political exercise, and you have to say that it accomplished what it set out to accomplish.
But I would say this about Judge Noreika. I think she ran a very fair courtroom. She ran a very fair trial.
I guess we all need, to shop at Banana Republic from now on? Because that's what it feels like. Yeah, a Banana Republic.
For years, the Bidens have been able to escape any legal accountability for their sleazy, corrupt conduct. But today, their luck ran out. At least Hunter's did.
Power is all they love. And they're willing to do anything to cling to it. They're willing to destroy the rule of law. The Republic has been wounded by weak lawyers and talentless political bloodhounds.
It gave me a little boost of confidence in the American legal system, although they still have a lot of work to do to win me back.
I believe that there was a conscious collusion of allies that came together. It's pretty obvious, with a private strategy to eliminate a common shared adversary. Hunter's going to jail, so Joe doesn't have to. And when he comes out, he'll be rewarded for his loyalty, like a made man in a Biden crime family. This is a distraction from the influence peddling and the kickbacks.
Yes, these are 2 different trials under very different circumstances. Hunter Biden was federal. Trump's was not. The crimes and the evidence all completely different. But you can't claim the justice system is dead because of a single conviction while also praising it for another. And you can't claim President Biden is weaponizing the Justice Department to go after his enemies when that same department just convicted his own son. But in a world of MAGA, perhaps you can. Prominent conservatives are trading baseless conspiracies for another. Now they're claiming that Hunter Biden's trial was a sham to give cover to Biden. Charlie Kirk says the Democrats will use the conviction to claim that the system is fair. Vivek Ramaswamy, he calls it a smokescreen to deflect attention from Biden's other crimes. Republican Senator Tom Cotton says it's a way to insulate Joe Biden, who is guilty of corruption. Trump's campaign calls the case a distraction from the, quote, Biden crime family. Now, remember, this is the same Biden that conservatives claim can't walk, can't talk, or think on his own. But just so we're clear, Biden has no power over a state-level prosecution. But the same federal government that he actually runs just prosecuted his own son. And the system we're supposed to believe is rigged? That just makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because she said it best. It is amazing to me that conservatives out there are all screaming, oh, we went from they got it right to it's a plant. They're just giving us this. The Biden crime family strikes again. I'm like, oh, dear God. It's like, you ever just see someone argue with themselves for no reason at all? It's literally like watching someone lose it. Really lose it, because you hear Republicans, oh, well, they finally got this right. They didn't succumb to Biden. Okay, so let me just throw this out here. The president is not involved in any way. And plus, don't you think it'd be, and I've said this before because a lot of people don't believe this. I'm like, wouldn't it be a little on the nose for the president of the United States to get involved in a federal court case involving his son? Does that not look like conflict of interest? I'm just saying. But again, Republicans and conservatives, because let's be honest, they love the ill-educated. They love those whose education level is not that high, who's easily gullible, and because they look like them, they're more inclined to believe them. And so that's what they're doing now. They're muddying the waters, saying that, oh, he's a plant, he's this, he's not really there for that. He's doing everything under the sun to sit there and say, outside the obvious, yes, the legal system did its due process. Hunter Biden was found guilty on 3 charges by a jury of his peers. Sentencing happens next, which I can only imagine what's going to happen. Against there and say, well, he doesn't get jail time because of his father. Again, this is the same group of people. This is why I'm mad at Dominion. I'm mad at Dominion because Dominion had Fox News by the balls. Dominion had Fox News by the balls. You could have taken them to court. You could have put every one of those people that spouted those lies about the election in front of a courtroom and could have had a field day and won. But they settled for $800. They settled for $800 million. And I think to myself, I'm sorry, it was more than $100 million. I take it back. But they settled. And I always hated Dominion for that, because Dominion could have put Fox News in court for the world to see and shown that Fox News is not a news station. It never has been. It is an entertainment network with actors with given scripts who love to spew hatred, because hatred equals controversy and controversy creates cash. Thanks, Eric Bischoff. But again, we'll have to follow the story as it goes along. But congratulations, conservatives. You got your white whale. It only took you 2 years. At the same time, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be voting for Hunter Biden because Hunter Biden is not in an election. But, try telling that to conservatives. That being said, guys, Waffle House was dealing with strikes because, again, in a place that's over 24/7, which actually good food, and the workers you don't want to mess with because they all can fight, are now giving in to the workers' demands by actually raising pay to at least $3 an hour, and eventually we'll get to $5.25 per hour, hopefully 2 years from now in June. It does not include the base pay, does not include workers' tips, and will be higher in some states depending on minimum wage laws. Now, don't get me wrong. This is great because Waffle House, I keep saying, guys, strikes work. Unions work. And I keep saying that what's going to wind up happening is once the minimum wage is raised, once it's actually raised, things change dramatically because the federal is still 729. So again, what I always hate about this is that it should be way higher by now. Because if you raise the minimum wage federally, that means it has to be raised across the states altogether. So with that being said, I'm happy that those Waffle House workers are getting what they need. But again, it needs to be higher. People have to do multiple things in order to make ends meet when it used to be just one job paid for everything. But again, still good news that Waffle House got their raises. But I did want to move on to another point of this because, yes, we are talking about the Congress and what's going on. I would be remiss if we're not talking about what's going on with the Supreme Court justices and the fact that America's oldest Uncle Tom, next to the current Uncle Tom, Tim Scott, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas just admitted about some rather curious contributions he's been receiving from a conservative billionaire.
We've got some breaking news now. In brand new financial disclosure statements, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is now acknowledging controversial luxury trips in 2019 paid for by billionaire Harlan Crow. NBC's Lawrence Hurley is following this for us. So what more are we learning, Lawrence, from this financial disclosure?
Yeah, and the report, this is the annual reports that the justices put out every year. And up until the series of stories by ProPublica last year that ended up winning a Pulitzer Prize, Clarence Thomas had said that these types of things didn't need to be disclosed. And he maintained that even after the ProPublica stories came out that detailed his trips with Harlan Crow and some other things like that. And so this report today is kind of interesting because he has an amendment to his 2019 report in which he says he had inadvertently omitted a couple of trips, one of which was to Bali with Harlan Crow, and another one was to the Bohemian Grove private club in California, also with Harlan Crow. And so he had amended his report just to make that clear. Under the new rules that were adopted last year, justices, certainly have to report this type of thing. Thomas had previously said that there was a kind of loophole that meant he didn't have to. So here's a sort of acknowledgement that maybe he, at least some of those things, he now realizes that he should have disclosed in the first place.
So yes, remember a while back that we were talking about that Supreme Court justices' ethics were actually being questioned. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, but others were being brought into this because again, these are Supreme Court justices. These are the ones that can literally make or break how our country dictate things. Don't believe me? They shot down Roe versus Wade, something we thought would never happen. At the same time, these people, for a lot of people who don't realize, these Supreme Court justices are not infallible. They can be corrupted. They can be purchased. They can be bought. At the same time, they have to be held to a standard of ethics. We talked about this a few months ago in this podcast, that what needed to happen was that Supreme Court, if you actually look at the checks and balances, they don't have anybody to answer to. If you really think about it, Supreme Court's all being a lifetime appointment, their decisions they make are final. But the crazy part about it is they're not checked by anybody on the ethics side. Sure, they're supposed to report their findings, but as you can see, some of them wait till it's a little bit later or safer to do so. And even more so, you understand that these justices all have leanings. Some may lean conservative, some may lean progressive, some may lean liberal. That also being said, they also, speak at these corresponding covered dish plate dinners. And again, what you're about to hear should be very disturbing.
New ethics questions at the Supreme Court after two justices were caught on secret recordings discussing politically sensitive topics.
People in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that, to return our country to a place of godliness.
Oh, I agree with you.
Laura. Windsor, a self-described documentary film. Justice Alito is heard telling Windsor a compromise between the left and the right might be impossible.
I think you're probably right. I think one side or the other is going to win. There can be a way of working, a way of living together peacefully, but it's difficult, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised.
In a separate recording, Justice Alito's wife says she was unfazed by a recent controversy over 2 flags flying at the couple's homes, flags that were associated with rioters at the January 6th attack. Chief Justice Roberts pushes back when Windsor said the Supreme Court should be guiding the U.S. as a Christian nation.
Yeah, I don't know that we live in a Christian nation. I know a lot of Jewish and Muslim friends who would say maybe not.
ABC News has not independently confirmed the authenticity of the tapes. The charity released a statement condemning the surreptitious recording of justices at the event, which is inconsistent with the entire spirit of the evening. Justice Alito, his wife, and Justice Roberts have not commented. Windsor has also not responded to ABC's request.
Okay, so again, it's crazy that some people, and I cannot stress this enough, the U.S. is not a Christian nation. It hasn't. Its founding fathers have also sat there and said, we should be founded on a Christian nation. We literally had separation of church and state for a reason, and this was it. But the thing I'm getting at, guys, is that for the simple fact of the matter, these are Supreme Court justices. They're not supposed to have any allegiances except to the law and the Constitution. That's it. That's the only allegiance they had to is the Constitution, how we dictate ourselves. They have no allegiances to left or right. They are supposed to be the Switzerland of our political system, of our judicial system, I meant to say. They're supposed to be Switzerland. They're supposed to be. But you got one guy who believes that, yeah, we probably should be a Christian nation. You have another guy that believes that, oh, well, the other side should be working together. In the meantime, Dorito is hoping that every one of his cases gets the Supreme Court. Why? Because there's more conservatives in the Supreme Court, and it's kind of like going to a home field advantage. But what's scary, and what's also scary is not only about what these justices say, but what their wives say. Because I'm going to start with a more recent one. Because keep in mind, Justice Alito's wife has already sat there and, said something that should give a lot of people concern.
This is new audio. It just recently went up on your social media and on Rolling Stone. Here is Martha Ann Alito, and you go up to her and you start by saying, hey, I'm a big fan of your husband, and let's hear what happens after that.
I'm a huge fan of your husband, and everything that you're going through, I just want to tell you that,
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's not okay, though. It's not okay.
It's okay. It's okay because if they come back to me, I'll get them. I'm going to be liberated. And
What do you mean by
gay? There's a 5-year defamation statute of limitations.
I don't know what you mean by gay, like media. Oh, okay.
Come on, I'll get you. Come on.
I'm normally not speechless. I'll get them. I'm going to get them. I'll be liberated and I'm going to get them. She talks about a 5-year defamation statute of limitations. We know that there are conservative legal groups who would like to allow the media to be sued for defamation. Donald Trump talks about it all the time. Do you think that's what she was talking about?
Well, I certainly feel like, yeah, she would like to go after the media, but the implication here with a 5-year statute of limitations is that Justice Alito will be retired by then. And he would only retire
if there's a conservative.
If Trump were in the White House again. Sure. So there's an assumption there that Trump wins the White House. And so that adds an additional layer of self-interest to all of these decisions that he's deciding, because he's thinking about impending retirement.
Sure.
Amongst other things.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that the moment Donald Trump is inaugurated, they'll retire probably a day after that.
So what's crazy about it is that's, again, one wife. And for all those that don't remember, there was another one that I'm talking about as well. This is the reason why I keep saying when it comes to these women, we should be aware. At the same time, this brings up an ethical issue that if you don't believe that these court justices, these Supreme Court individuals are not at home talking with their spouses about stuff, and the fact their spouses are, let's just say, empowered, if you will, let me remind you of old Uncle Tom Clarence Thomas's wife and what she said during the January 6th terrorist attack.
Thomas is facing tough questions about the alarming messages his wife Ginny sent to then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows in the days after the 2020 presidential election. The messages urged extreme measures to overturn the results, calling Biden's victory, quote, the greatest heist of our history. In one message obtained by the January 6th committee, Ginny Thomas wrote, quote, make a plan, release the Kraken, and save us from the left taking America down. The messages are under particular scrutiny because at the time, President Trump was openly talking about taking his case to the Supreme Court.
We'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's going to end up perhaps at the highest court in the land.
Hopefully, they will do what's right for our
country.
country.
You guys remember, that was during the time where Trump had sat there and said, we're going to march down here, we're going to stop the count. And what did he do? He led a mob down the street to where they did try against the Capitol, to where one lost their life. A cop got injured. People thought they were being patriots, raided the spot and raided the offices. And then a year later, it's another wife. See, this is why I keep saying, guys, the whole thing about all this is just that there has to be we have to restore faith in the Supreme Court, which means that they do have to answer to somebody. There should be an ethical board. Just like the Attorney General can remove the president, we should have the ability, there should be in place outside of murder or just retirement to where a Supreme Court justice can be removed. At the same time, they need somebody to answer to. We cannot trust the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. We cannot trust, and I'm not just saying Alito, I'm not just saying Thomas, I'm not just saying anybody. I mean everybody. Everybody there on that bench has to answer to somebody else. That is the whole idea of check and balances. We cannot depend on Supreme Court justices to go, you guys can trust us. No, we can't. It's the same reason why the House and the Senate have checks and balances, why the executive branch has checks and balances. The only group out there that doesn't have an overhead ethical or executive board seems to be the Supreme Court. That alone needs to change in order to restore faith in Americans, because let's be honest, anytime you ever hear that Trump's taking his case to the Supreme Court, you're filled with a little bit of dread because it actually might go his way because he packed the court himself. Just saying. But I usually don't talk about sports a lot here on How the Frack We Got Here, but we got to talk about this because, well, the napkins are mad that their great white hope is not on Team USA.
In the high road after being snubbed from Team USA Olympic basketball roster. Our next guest says U.S. women's basketball lost a golden opportunity. Former NFL sideline reporter Michelle Tafoya joins us now. Michelle, you were there every step of the way. You saw the emergence of women's sports. You were doing play-by-play during it. Did the USA basketball make the right move?
I think they whiffed here. I completely believe they lost a golden opportunity. You could have got one of those 12 spots. Now, look, every woman on that team is deserving. And there are also other women out there who didn't get picked who are deserving. And I think Caitlin Clark is one of them. If you're going to go with the meritocracy argument, we could chalk up a ton of stuff. But the undeniable thing about Caitlin Clark is how popular she is, how many eyeballs she has brought to the sport. People are discovering women's basketball for the first time, for many, many people, because of Caitlin Clark. She would have been a boon for this Olympic team. Look, this is a sport. It is a game. Brian, it's also a business. You know that better than anybody. It is a business. This would have meant so much for the ratings of the women's Olympic basketball stuff, all of it.
So a couple of things, Michelle. If you're USA basketball, you feel pressure because the women are the best in the world, just like the men. I think they won 9 gold medals already. They've only lost 3 games ever. And you don't want to be that coach to get knocked out early, and maybe because you put somebody on there that isn't the top 12 in the world. So far, she's averaged 16 points a game as a pro, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, making 37% of her shots. Solid start. But remember, and you live this, but I was covering it too, UConn basketball. The best player in college basketball, Rebecca Lobo. She was never a dominant in the WNBA. Sometimes you reach your peak in college. She hasn't shown that she's among the best pros yet.
Are you saying her performance the other night with 30 points and 7 threes to tie a rookie record does not show that she's a promising pro? I don't buy it. I just don't. And again, you can sit her on the pine. You can have her the 12th person on your roster. People will still tune in to see if she gets on that floor, to see if she gets to play. These women on the U.S. team are so dominant that you can win with almost any 12 that they decided to pick. So if you want the eyeballs that you say that you want, that you've been asking for decades, if you want the support, you want the boost to this game that you say that you want, then you put the most popular player. Not only because she's the most popular, Brian, she's one of the best players on the planet. You do not lose any.
Okay, so let's stop right there, because at this point, she's not being a reporter. She's just basically being a Caitlin Clark fan. Yes, Caitlin Clark. Look, I get that when it comes to napkins out there, napkins, I mean you white people, you feel this need that when you have your great wife, get behind it. Does that not take away from the fact that she's a great player? Possibly. She might be a good player. I mean, she might. The last time I checked, she really hasn't took any of her college team when she was in college. I don't remember her actually getting to the Final Four. I don't actually remember her winning any championships, but again, she seems to be this crowd favorite. But forget that Reese was right there along with her. But again, like I said, went to college, got drafted, plays for Indiana Fever. Okay, fine. But now we have women's basketball because the Olympics of Paris, the Paris Olympics are coming up. Summer Olympics are coming up. And at the same time, there are white people in arms because she's not on the American team. Ugh. This is where I sit there and I go, do y'all really know how the basketball teams for USA basketball men and women work? Y'all just, I'm like, this is why I say America sometimes, when it comes to a lot of people, they're just really lacking education, or just, with all the smartphone devices in their hand, they don't sit there and say how to actually put together men and women's USA basketball teams for the Olympics. You have a smartphone in your hand that can literally answer this question for you. But instead of doing that, you want to gripe and complain and be mad that currently the media darling, or I should say, the Napkins' current white hope, is not on the women's basketball team. As I love how Michelle Tafoya turned around and say, well, the basketball team's already great in itself, and really they can win with anybody as a 12th player. That kind of defeats the argument that Caitlin Clark needs to be there. Except that you're not saying Caitlin Clark. But here's what they're not saying. Her and Stephen A are not saying. They're pretty much saying, if you do not have a white woman on this team that has now become the media darling for a lot of people, you're saying the eyes won't be there. Forget the fact of talent. You're saying if she's not there, it's not worth watching. You have basically just explained the problem that you guys do not watch the WNBA. The WNBA has been there, but you get mad about how much these women make because they're not making the same thing the men are making. Oh, well, are you going to the games? Are you buying tickets? Are you buying jerseys? Are you buying playoff tickets? Are you there for their finals? Because if you lose the sales from the WNBA and the NBA, there's a wide margin. At the same time, women's basketball for the Olympics has been going around just as long as the men's. But because the men's have taken a downside since the Dream Team and the Redemption Team, well, let's just say the other countries are getting better than us. At the same time, women's basketball has this immediate need that can jump forward if it chooses to, but you want to do it behind the great white hype. Well, you're mad that the matter that she's not a part of the Olympics basketball team is for one very solid reason. And Miss Lobo will be able to explain that.
That everyone was talking about on Saturday afternoon when we learned that Caitlin Clark will be left off of the American Olympic roster for the upcoming games. She turned 22 in January. The roster does not include any players under the age of 26. Christine Brennan has been covering international sports for the U.S. for as long as anyone. She is as authoritative a voice as there is in the media. This was her reaction on ESPN Radio.
She is hitting landmarks that no other rookie has ever hit in terms of points, assists at certain points in the game. She's ahead on assists of not only Taurasi, but Sabrina and Kelsey Plum and Jewel Lloyd, all of whom are going to be on the team. Let's go back to eyeballs. In the mission statement, you can see right on the website of USA Basketball, it's not only international competition, but it's also growing the game. That's part of the charter of the U.S. Amateur Sports Act. Come on, that's a no-brainer on that one. If that's the criteria, you do not take Taurasi, you take Caitlin Clark.
So, once again, as I said repeatedly last week, Rebecca Lobo, good enough to get up with us here today. I'm not going to start screaming and yelling about things in which I do not consider myself expert enough to have an opinion that matters. Rebecca, you do. So I'm going to ask it to you as directly as I can. Was this the right or wrong decision with Caitlin Clark being left off this team?
And I'm going to start by giving you some context, Greeny. When it comes to forming the women's Olympic team, it's a 3-year process. They started having training camps back in February of 22. They had a training camp in April of 22. Then the World Cup in the fall of 22. They had multiple training camps throughout the course of 2023. And then this year in February, they went overseas for exhibitions. They had a training camp this April. So all of the women who were in the pool and all the women who ended up reportedly being on this roster participated in many of those. And why is that important? Well, because of the timing of the WNBA season. The WNBA takes a break during their summer season for the Olympics. And the Olympic team has 7 practices before they participate in the Olympics. So all of these women that you're seeing on the graphic that are reported to have made the roster have played with one another. All of them have had opportunities now over the course of the last couple of years to learn Cheryl Reeve's system, to learn one another, to learn some of the opponents that they're going to face in the international game. And Christine brought up Diana Taurasi specifically. I spoke to people, to players who were at the training camps who said Diana Taurasi played great. She's a 5-time Olympian. She brings a type of leadership that no one else can. Now, Caitlin Clark, through no fault of her own, was not able to participate in any of those training camps. She would have either last year in April of 23 or in April of 24, except her team was playing in the Final Four. So she did not have that chance. And the other point, I mean, Caitlin Clark is an exceptional player. She is going to be a multi-time Olympian as long as she stays healthy. The conversation that no one adds is, who are you taking off of that roster to put Caitlin Clark on? Are you taking off Diana Taurasi? As I mentioned, she performed exceptionally well in those training camps. Are you taking off Sabrina Ionescu or Kelsey Plum, who helped the team win the gold medal at the World Cup? The one player that is interesting that people should keep their eye on in this conversation is Chelsea Gray. When she was healthy a season ago, best point guard in the world. She has not played a WNBA game yet this season because of a lower leg injury. If for some reason she's not able to return, but they expect that she will, or if any other member of the backcourt that has been reportedly named to that roster has any kind of an injury, I would expect that Caitlin Clark would be the backcourt player that could get added to this roster. But you have to look at the context in which the selection committee was creating this basketball team. And when you look at the roster, all you see is, man, this is a really good team. This is a stacked team. This is a team that has a great chance to win a gold medal. And you have to kind of separate it from some of that other outside noise.
Understood. And that's exactly what I wanted you to explain to everyone. I'll point out again, Caitlin Clark is 22 and no other player on that team, or no player on that team, is under 26. But as Christine referenced, there is a different element that is involved with Caitlin Clark. Obviously, you kept using the word exceptional. She sometimes is an exception. Sometimes exceptions are made for unique circumstances, like the amount of additional attention that she would just bring. Again, that I think is a fairly obvious fact. Christine was suggesting they should have taken that into account. Do you think they should have taken it into account?
Again, my question would be, at the expense of who? At the expense of who? I think all of the players who made the roster have to feel pretty good about the teammates around them and the sacrifices that they've made over the course of the last 3 years and the commitment that they have made to USA basketball. I understand Christine's argument. Would the ratings for NBC and the Olympics be different this year if Caitlin Clark was on the roster? Well, based on what we've seen in ratings, anytime Caitlin Clark plays over the course of the last year and a half, yes. Would jersey sales be different? Yes. But I think USA Basketball Selection Committee did a pretty good job making a terrific roster and rewarding the players who have made those sacrifices and made the commitments to USAB. And again, Caitlin's 22 years old, as you mentioned. She's going to have plenty of opportunities if she stays healthy to represent the U.S. And would she be an asset to this team? Yes, but so are all the women who have been named to the team.
So what's crazy about that is literally that's it. It was a timing issue. She was during the Final Four when they had the teams practice to go. Because she wasn't there for the training camps, she couldn't be on there. That's it. There is no grand conspiracy that a lot of people are making, Fox News, Stephen A., that women's USA basketball made a mistake. They didn't. Is it a numbers thing? Yes, I certainly think it is. I also think it's a little bit of white privilege. I think it's a little bit of white privilege that you give an individual to think that, oh, well, they haven't earned any accolades, but because we want them there, screw the rules. Which is what they're saying. Screw the rules. Where in this case, if Caitlin Clark was the great person that they say she is, then all really she could have done was sit there and say, I respect it. It was a timing issue. I'm still behind Team Women's USA Basketball. I mean, please support them. Please watch. Because again, it's my hope that one day I'll be able to join them when it's my time. That's it. But what did she say? Well, it's okay. I'm not disappointed. But you text your former coach and said they woke up a monster. See, this is the reason why I already know that Caitlin Clark is nothing more than a product of white hype and white privilege. Because forget the fact of other women who probably are better than her, who have earned the right to represent the country in the Olympics, now have to be sidelined because a 22-year-old white hype that is being pushed by napkins, who isn't saying that she does, who isn't saying she's not mad that she's on the team, but she's letting everybody else speak for her when she could have calmed herself. But I digress. I mean, you don't see us getting mad about Angel. You don't see us being mad about Angel Reese not being on the team because, she understands how things work and timing and systems and all that. But the last thing I got, guys, before we get to our feel good segment is, again, majority of Black Americans believe that U.S. institutions are conspiring against them. More than 6 in 10 Black adults have been surveyed agree that institutions such as the criminal justice system, the country's economic system, and policing are designed to hold people back. Let's be honest. Do we really need a study for this? Okay. Because a lot of people don't believe this. The reason why we keep on saying the system is not broken, the system's working exactly as it should. The criminal justice system, number one, most incarcerated people in prison right now, Black people. We can't even get police or those that are shot by police, kill police, to be actually convicted or not convicted, since prosecutions won't convict anything. But whenever it comes to the Black man, you get the fast food service of being convicted, found guilty, and sentenced, sometimes within minutes. But at the same time, they don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about the economic system, where, again, there's a reason why we needed affirmative action. There is a reason why when Supreme Court gutted the college acceptance of affirmative action, because 4 Asians couldn't get into an Ivy League school and claim discrimination and sued because of it. By the way, they still didn't get in. Affirmative action for college acceptance was gutted. And what happened? It led to the removal of DEI programs and positions and jobs across companies, because now they won't get sued, simply put, for killing those programs. But again, economic systems. Let's talk about the fact that for most CEOs, how many CEOs and how many VP boards do you actually see Black people? Again, when it comes to education, when it comes to sports, we excel in that. But when it comes to education, when it comes to financial opportunities, when it comes to neighborhood zones, when it comes to all the above that other ethnic groups have, we don't. I mean, it's harder for us to get loans. It is harder for us. It's harder for us to get licenses. It's harder for us to have anything as a leg up. But other groups are able to get just as easy. Let me not talk about redlining, where it's hard enough to be a black person to be a homeowner, where in case you might have got undervalued or overpaid. At the same time, we just covered a story where a couple who was black, where the appraiser lowballed them, so they had their friend act like they owned the house, and the appraiser gave them a much higher offer. So redlining and the crap of the economic system is still going on. And policing, do we really need to talk about that when the evidence is substantial? When we sat there and hoped that, they keep on talking about, well, law enforcement and minorities, I said that only happens if you hold law enforcement accountable and reform it. We have seen countless story upon story upon story upon story of individuals who have came across the law and either have been maimed, either have been killed, or have had horrific things happen to them. So we just talked about the Goon Squad, who literally tried to execute 2 black men for no reason. And yet, this study that they put out there says that, we believe that the system is designed. Yeah, because the system isn't broken. And as the person that did the study said, quote unquote, it's not really a conspiracy theory if it's true. So again, I just found it interesting that we need a study to find that out. But anyway, we're going to go and move on to our feel good segment, guys. As usual, in How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes makes use of faith and humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, hump day. Tomorrow is Friday, which is Thursday. We will leave you guys out some good vibrations. And of course, we just did cover graduates last month. So if you did graduate from high school or college, congratulations. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a wonderful career in whatever you excel at. But as a parent that goes back to school, this moment with a mom who had just graduated with her master's and a son just made it all worthwhile.
Natasha Sonia Alford, who also earned a UP certificate. She asked him if he wanted to hood me, and he nodded. And I was like, does he even know what that is? But he jumped into his role and participated. And also for him, I hope he never forgets it. I hope that, one day I'll be able to be at his hooding ceremony and watch him get hooded.
And that's cool, because that's going to be something he is definitely going to remember with his mom. But again, congratulations to all graduates. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Before we do get out of here, some shameless plugging. I keep talking about Blur Station, guys. Why? Because it is the vehicle, the table that we've always wanted to have that shows that we can do what Netflix and Amazon Prime and all those streaming services can do, but we can do it better. Why? Because it's us. So definitely check out blurstation.com. If you get the chance to join, please join. Go ahead and the join now button. And when you're there, please select the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership, guys. And under the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership, if you would select my name, Black Spartan, as the Affinity Influencer Partner, I would be definitely appreciative of that. But as you can see, it's $10.99 a month. $10.99 a month to watch Blur Station. And if you've been following my social and been following other socials out there, we have been talking about hashtag Blur Station Beta, to where we showed you just a little bit of what the site looks like, what you can definitely get to see. And of course, more episodes and new things are coming out in the news. So definitely check out blurstation.com whenever you get the chance. I'm paying 36 months, paying $10.99. You do get the ability to own a piece of Blur Station. Doesn't get any better than that. Aside from myself, guys, you can find me Black_Spartan615 on the socials, as I usually do reviews on everything, including gym stuff. Why? Because for the gym, it's nice to find peace between the weights. At the same time, guys, the link at the bottom, I'll make that just a little bit bigger where you can see it. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, will take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and Offense Podcast. Definitely like, share, subscribe. We cannot do this without you guys. So again, spread the word. It only takes a second to do all these things, and it costs you nothing. Outside of that, guys, outside of seeing us here, you can definitely check us out on Spotify under How the Frack We Got Here. Check us out at Always Record TV. It is now available not on your browser, but on your Roku app as well. So you can see my handsome mug there. And wherever you do get your podcast from, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, or Apple, we're all there. So again, like, share, let me know what you think, because again, none of this can be done without your support. But I do stress this again, guys, we are in an election season. So it's not just the two old men you got to worry about. It's also elections that are going on in your local area. Get informed, know the candidates, push them to answer your questions. Your vote matters. If it wasn't so, they would not be trying anything and everything to make sure that you can't do it. Outside of that, guys, if you yourself are feeling called to civil service, there's plenty of sites out there that can show you how to run for office in your city or in your state and be either a representative or be a senator or even be part of the House. Hopefully here in Nashville we'll have some new people, because our House chamber is ran by idiots. But, well, except for 3 good ones. But the rest of them are idiots. That being said, guys, again, I cannot stress this enough. Thank you all for watching and liking and letting people know this is live. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. But the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about being informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, folks. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as a society when we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of the past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, How the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll all get through this. Peace.